Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Alina Islam, and I'm a mining analyst here at Red Cloud Securities. I'm very pleased to introduce Solis Minerals to you today, an exploration company focused on advancing its battery metals projects in Latin America, including the recently acquired Jaguar lithium pegmatite project in Brazil. For the webinar today, we have with us Matthew Boyes, Executive Director of the company. Matthew will provide an introduction to the company, including an overview of activities currently underway at the Jaguar project. After the presentation, we'll take your questions live. Please send us your questions via the chat box, and we'll get through as many as we can. Before we get started, though, I do need to mention the fine print. For Solis Minerals, there may be some forward-looking statements made on this call. I would direct listeners to the cautionary note on page 2 of the Solis Minerals corporate presentation located on the company's website. For Red Cloud Securities, I would highlight that this webinar is for information purposes only and should not be considered a solicitation to purchase or sell securities or a recommendation to buy or sell securities. We note that this call does not take into account the particular situation or needs of individual investors. Participants should rely on their own investigations and seek their own professional advice before investment. Please see our most recent research located on our website for Solis Minerals specific disclosures. With that, Matthew, I'll hand it over to you. Please take it away.
Thanks very much for the intro, Alana, and thank you very much for the audience out there for attending tonight. And so it's great to be on. Okay, Solis Minerals, cautionary statement. I'll let everybody read that at their own leisure. And we'll just move on to the company overview. Really, what I like to sort of focus on these slides is who is the major shareholder. Our major shareholder is Latin Resources. After the recent placement we've just completed, that Latin will be increasing their shareholding to almost 18% in Solis Minerals, and I think that's key. It's a key sort of indication of support for Latin. For Solis, because Latin is a company now which has had massive success in South America and Brazil specifically, and to have them support our group of people and our board in their endeavors to move forward and build a new company there in Brazil, and hopefully be, I guess, Latin too, is really what we want to try and produce here with Solis over the next 12 to 24 months is really the objective of what we have. So to have that support, to have that large cornerstone in there is a massive plus for us. Our board of directors are made up of myself, Michael Parker, ex First Quantum, he's looking after our assets in Peru, Kevin Wilson, and non-execs is Jason Kubert in Canada, and Mr. Christopher Gale, obviously, who's the managing director of Latin Resources. Currently on issue, we have about 77 to 80 million shares post placement, and of that, the top 20 is held by almost top 20 holds almost 40% of the total register, which is excellent. Moving down, I'm not going to focus too much on this slide because I think the whole decarbonisation effort that the world is moving into has been well and truly covered by most companies and by the media, and everybody knows where we are. The key aspect of what's happening at the moment is in the world is that we're moving into a phase of lithium deficit, and that is the number one key that everyone has to look at. For the next 5 years, people are going to be struggling to fill these gigafactories with lithium, and what you want to be in is in a company which has the potential to be a short-term producer of lithium in a country which is close to the US or close to the market. And the US is going to become a massive market for lithium, especially with LG and with Ford and many others that are constructing gigafactories there in the US. So basically, like I said, I won't focus on this too much, but basically I just want to emphasize Brazil, with what's happened in the last 2.5 years with the expansion and the amount of investment that is currently being placed into the lithium industry and potentially and specifically into pegmatite development and exploration in Brazil. Brazil is going to become a major producer and a major player in lithium over the next 5 to 10 years. There is more pegmatite on the ground in lithium than I've seen in any other country, and I've worked in lithium space for the last 3.5 years. I think Brazil has everything going forward at the moment. There's a massive amount of interest in the country, and its position and its ability and the mining and its ability to advance the projects. And also we've seen that with Sigma recently, and also this mining legislation is putting in place, and the transparency which the government is applying to its mining legislation is excellent. And I think Brazil is going to be a massive player in the future. Where we are in South America, Solis is focusing on two metals. One is lithium and one is copper. Probably the two most important metals for this whole decarbonisation effort. The company was founded on the projects in Peru, which we continue to advance. We will have continuous updates throughout the year on the advancement of our Hilo Norte, Hilo Este, and our Cinto projects in Peru, looking for IOCG porphyry-style copper deposits, which we will continue to explore for the next foreseeable future. We have moved our focus recently into the lithium space because it was predominantly my background initially, and where I feel that we can add the best value for our shareholders in the short term. Together with building our copper portfolio in Peru and our lithium portfolio in Brazil, we're going to be building a junior explorer which has got a very, very large footprint in the battery metal space in South America. There's one of the photos from the recent drilling campaign which we published today. This is the Jaguar lithium project in Bahia State. Roughly a month ago now, we closed a deal to enter into an option agreement on a project called Jaguar. Jaguar is located about 85 kilometers south of Petrolina in Bahia State in Brazil. The asset has fantastic infrastructure. It's a major highway, a paved highway to within 4 kilometers of the front door of the project. There's water and power accessible on site, and we have 2 tenements that we've picked up there with over 1,300 hectares of coverage with no environmental liabilities and in good standing. One of the tenements, the Jaguar pit, which is the tenement to the north, where currently my cursor is around about 300 hectares and has a granted mining license for the extraction of dimension stone already active on that particular asset. And there is a process involved which Solis is looking into at the moment to be able to convert that project, convert that license into a mining license for lithium, which gives us the capacity to extract a limited tonnage, but a tonnage that could potentially produce cash flow in a short period of time. And then we will move towards a full DFS and a full mining application study. Excuse me. From a point of view of geology, and it's always important, is where these assets sit with respect to, I guess, the source of where the lithium's coming from. And always in the recent companies when I worked in, there's always been this Goldilocks zone. You're always talking about distance from a pregnant granite, and also that these pegmatites can be placed into a favorable host. So you're getting enough of a void opening up for these pegmatites to be in place, and you're enough of a distance from the pegmatite, so that your lithium metallurgy or your mineralogy is what you need to be able to be confident you're going to be finding some LCT or lithium cesium tantalum bound pegmatites. Jaguar sits approximately 1.5 kilometers to the south of a very large intrusive granitoid body, and about 2.5 kilometers to the west of another one. We think either of these two is the prospective source of the lithium-bearing minerals. We still have to confirm that. We've only been on the ground for 1.5 months, but as far as situation, as far as where the asset is situated, it's ideal. We couldn't have asked for a better geological setting and a better host rock to be encompassing these pegmatites. We think that Jaguar itself has large change potential because of the size of the pegmatites outcropping the surface. We can see these pegmatites over 1.5 kilometers in length. They're up to 50, 60 meters wide. And recently we've discovered that there are multiple pegmatites in the property with multiple outcrops of spodumene, which we don't know where the source is coming from. So that is what the whole exploration effort is going to be about over the next 3 to 6 months. Drilling at Jaguar, obviously news out this morning. We have hit the central core or central spodumene bearing core of the pegmatite, which was exposed in the photos in the original announcement regarding the asset acquisition. The asset has a completely different dip to what we were expecting. So we were expecting the the intrusive body to be subvertical from the geology that we didn't see it in the pit, and it's actually dipping around about 30 degrees to the south. So the whole of the side of the hill is basically a reflection of the pegmatite body itself. So what we've seen is that we're getting a pegmatite between 50 and 60 meters thick. The central core area of those is between 8 to 10 meters thick. We still need we're still in a phase where we're actually cutting and going to be submitting these samples. We expect those samples to come back for confirmation of the grade sometime towards the end of August. Now that is an estimation. We still haven't got all our core cutting facilities and everything up and running on site. It's a very juvenile company in the sense that we're limited personnel and facilities, but we will be up to speed within the next couple of weeks. We are bringing in another rig now because we see such a massive potential here at Jaguar for us to have an additional discovery that we're extending our initial 2,500 meter drill program to around about 7,000 meters. The asset itself, we feel from, if I move down to the next slide, you can see the scale of what we're looking at here. This is the original it's a garimpo or artisanal open pit that where the original spodumene discovery was made. We have additional artisanal workings which have been opened up for feldspar, dimension stone, quartz, muscovite, and tourmaline mining. All minerals that you associated with pregnant pegmatite systems, all minerals and geology that we think is prospective and gives us the potential to actually have an additional discovery outside of what we've drilled currently under this pit. Drilling has been slow. We hope with additional, or we expect with addition of another rig, that drilling rate and production rates will increase significantly and give us a much better idea of what the potential of Jaguar and the whole of the tenement package has to offer in a much shorter period of time than what we've been doing at the moment. You can see from the outcrop in the pit and from the size of the crystals in the core that we are in a system which is producing very coarse spodumene which will not be particularly difficult to recover from that quartz ground mass and from the material in which it is sitting because of its coarseness and obviously its density difference. So we think that we're onto a pegmatite which is going to produce a metallurgically simple product. We think we've got scale. You can see over 800 meters of strike that still needs to be tested. We've got another 400 meters of strike to our south, which is not on this image, which will be tested as well. You can see that from the initial LIBS, laser ablation, handle laser ablation, where we have high-grade spodumene or high-grade lithium. Obviously, in spodumene, you're expecting to get those sort of grades. So it's just confirmation at this point. Once we get all that core cut and our assays back, as I said, mid to late, or probably late August, we'll be publishing our first results. So what we've got is we've got an open system. We've only done a very, very minimal amount of work over the last 2 weeks. We think for us to be in a position to really understand where we're going to be with Jaguar, we need another 3 to 6 months of drilling on this asset because of the amount of spodumene and the amount of additional pegmatites we found on the property. If we move to the next slide, I can show you this is a project. Well, this is a pegmatite which sits roughly 1,000 meters or 1 kilometer to the northwest of the actual Jaguar open pit where we're drilling. This has been visited only several times since we've been on site. You can see that the size of the outcropping pegmatite is about 400 meters by 400 meters. That's sitting at surface. We have picked up spodumene and quartz on float and free spodumene in this pit area down here. We haven't found the source yet. It's looking like a pegmatite, which is very similar to what you will see in most LCT bearing systems, but closer to the limits of it. So the Jaguar pegmatites really reflect the classic sort of classic pegmatite model, where you're having a albite, K-feldspar on the limits of quartz, and then you sort of grade into a tourmaline and then to a quartz, tourmaline rich and then to a quartz and spodumene rich cores. So there is basically this size just to show you the potential that there is for us to have additional discoveries and what we think is a stack system. A lot of these pegmatites, just about everyone I've seen so far, they occur in swarms, and we think that at Jaguar we've got the possibility to discover more pegmatites, very similar to the ones that's currently sitting in the Jaguar open pit through additional drilling. The Borborema lithium project. Now, this is where Solis started 3 months ago. It was with picking up some free assets. We're unpegged within the northeast of the country. Again, we focused on picking up assets which were close to large intrusive granulate bodies, which were also close to existing known pegmatite-rich systems. I visited most of this area around Pareles and Borborema, and the number of pregnant pegmatites that are there is incredible. The area is literally filthy with them. So it's an area that has a lot of potential for discovery. These are more greenfields than what the assets that we're looking at picking up, and new acquisitions as well, by the way, that we're looking at adding into our current portfolio. They will be explored once we get into a position where the company has the resources and the people to start the exploration. We look at doing that towards the end of the year, geochemical and remote sensing as early stage projects, with basically just to create a pipeline for ourselves as we go forward, developing Jaguar and developing any other asset we bring in the short term. The next slide just gives you an idea of where and how many existing other pegmatite projects have been pegged up around the northeast and the Borborema area of Brazil. I can't emphasize enough, I think the potential for Brazil in the short and long term for being a major player in the lithium industry is massive. They have done everything right so far, and I've been extremely impressed with the transparency and the ease of operation in Brazil. The infrastructure, the access to people, and the quality of the people that we're bringing in has been excellent. And I think there's a huge future there, and Solis is going to be there for an extended period of time. And on that, thank you very much. I think I'll pass back to Alina now. I don't have anything else to add to that. Obviously, we'll be available to answer any questions from now on.
Well, thanks a lot, Matthew, for that informative presentation. So we will now get started with the Q&A portion of the webinar. Just as a reminder for our audience, you can type your question into the chat box at any time. So Matthew, we already have a few questions here.
Yep.
First up, is there enough time to complete drilling before deciding whether to exercise the Jaguar option?
That's a great question. In short, the answer is yes. We have enough confidence now that we will be moving forward. I think with the acquisition, we have another 15 days, and I think we'll be able to complete sufficient amount of drilling to be able to make an informative decision based on that. But it looks like everything's pointing in the right direction. Yes.
Okay. On the drilling, you know, what is the belief that there may be a pegmatite swarm system of stacked pegmatites?
We think it's highly possible. The reason being is because I was on the ground myself literally 2 weeks ago, and where we were drilling, where the first hole we drilled, which was back under the pit, which actually was a hole we drilled in the wrong direction, I walked 50 meters behind the rig and I found a piece of quartz with a carrot-sized piece of spodumene sticking out of the ground, and that float didn't come from downhill; it came from uphill. So there is a lot of what we're seeing. It's very hard ground, so it's very hard bush to penetrate through. So getting coverage, and there's not a lot of outcrop on the property. But what we're seeing is there's more and more float being discovered with spodumene in it, and that gives us, well, myself personally, confidence that we're going to see repetitions. I think every project in Brazil has a bunch of repetitions, so it's very difficult to see that this particular system has only got one pegmatite on the entire property. We know there's two already, and I think there's more than probable that what we have is a shallow dipping stack system of pegmatites all the way through that hill. That ridge is made up for one reason only, because it's more resistant to weathering than the schist sitting around it. And the reason why is because it's full of quartz and it's full of feldspar. And I think that's all generated from the introduction of pegmatite into that area and its proximity to that granite. So the answer to the question is yes. I'd be very surprised if we don't see repetitions.
Okay. Another question on Jaguar. Do you have any plans to obtain any new tenements in the area or in other areas of Brazil?
Yes, we do. yeah, that's one of the key focuses for myself is to grow the company. We need security around Jaguar, so we have advanced significantly along the road of securing additional tenements around the project. We think we're in a good standing there. We have multiple other projects that are coming in consistently to the company. We do have other projects that we are in discussions with, are well advanced, and that we're making every effort to close projects which we think are as good as or better than Jaguar. So we've been, since I joined in March, I've spent the majority of my time in Brazil, and most of that has been looking at sourcing and viewing and visiting and actually going and standing on pegmatites and talking to owners and getting that dialogue and that relationship in place, so that we can be in a position where I guess we're considered a good operator and also a good partner. And yes, we absolutely. I'm not going to sit down here and stop with Jaguar. This company is going to grow rapidly. We're growing in Peru as well, and we're going to expand our portfolio as rapidly as we can. The lithium bull market is not going to stop tomorrow, and there is going to be a deficit, and you need to be in a position to make the most benefit of that. And Brazil, the opportunity there is immense. So yes, we're definitely looking at other assets and definitely looking at securing good tenure around assets that we know and we've already purchased.
Okay, so when does the mining license for Jaguar expire?
When does the mining license expire? Well, it doesn't expire. It's a renewable, as far as I understand, renewable every year. The actual mining license itself is only for a limited amount of tonnage, so it's not particularly beneficial to Solis at the moment. That mining license is only for a particular product, which is dimension stone, so feldspar and quartz. So we'll be looking at two options. One is an option to produce a limited amount of spodumene directly from open pit, somewhere in the order of, I think the number was 150,000 tons as a potential for revenue. And the second is to look for a full mining license, which is a longer, obviously more drawn out procedure. But I think the question is more as to how long do we have access to the asset, and how long is the tenement valid for? Tenement is valid for as long as we keep our expenditure up and meet our obligations, which we will do.
Okay, so at Jaguar, do you expect the pegmatite surrounding the core to carry some lithium grades?
There has been some limited lithium grades, yes, we do, and we've seen different types of minerals around the core, such as amblygonite, not a great lithium mineral to have, but it does indicate that the system is pregnant with lithium, and also pollucite, which is a cesium mineral. So there are different lithium and cesium minerals present in and close to the core, and it will carry grade. But I think the core is where we'll get our best grade, and also it all comes down to the type of grade. So it's coming out of a spodumene, which is an extractable grade. That's really where you have to focus on when you're talking about pegmatites. Not all pegmatites are equal, as they would say, because you need to be able to make sure that you can produce something from that down the line, and having coarse spodumene is exactly what you want. With none of your lithium deportment in your lepidolites or your pedalites or your amblygonite, you want spodumene as your one and only producer of your lithium grade, and that's what we have at Jaguar.
Okay, we have a question on permitting here. Can you talk about the different permitting process in Bahia State versus Minas Gerais State?
Honestly, I cannot. I don't know what the legislative differences are. I don't know what the differences in timeframes are, and it's something that I'm just sort of getting up to speed on now. So I do apologise for that, but I don't know the truthful answer to that at the moment.
Okay, when is the second drill rig expected to arrive?
As soon as possible. We have tenders out now. We've had responses. We just need to make a decision, but I can't see it being, considering how long it took the last one to get in, which was about a 3-week period. Honestly, I think it'll be about a month away before we see that machine on site and producing core.
Okay, so I guess based on the news that you put out today, Matthew, have the plans for the next couple of holes changed? Like where you're planning to target based on the observations from the recent holes?
No, not at all. No, the idea that we have for this initial program is to basically, we need to get an idea as quickly as possible. What are the potential dimensions of the system? Is it a 5 million, 2 million, 50 million ton pegmatite? And is there potential for repetition below this pegmatite and other sources of lithium on the property? That's our primary objective of this initial 2,500 meters. And so, no, nothing's changed whatsoever. We won't make any changes to our exploration plan. It is to basically give ourselves an idea, systematically approach it, and get as much exposure and much idea of what the system can potentially contain in the shortest possible period of time. So, no, we have no intention of changing what we do.
Okay. Question on the share price, Matthew. What are your thoughts on the recent dip in the share price?
Well, I'm not the happiest chief executive in the world at the moment, but I think, yeah, look, the share price reacted in a way that probably wasn't totally unexpected. I think I was disappointed to see it come back so hard, but then we've had a massive run. And so I think some people have decided that maybe there was too much expectation around what potentially could have come out of the initial drilling, and people have taken the opportunity to take some profit. And I think, look, we're not going anywhere. The model for the company hasn't changed at all. We're still in the very early days. We've got 3 holes into Jaguar, and this is exploration, so anything can happen in a short period. And I still have absolutely no doubt about the fact that Jaguar could be potentially a very, very important pegmatite for Brazil. So it hasn't changed. I think, the market has responded, and the market is always correct. So I think we just move on, and the company is financed now. We have sort of very limited risk on that side going forward. We're in a good place. We're building up a fantastic team of people, which is hard, but it's good to start to see some really good people coming into the company. We're building up a portfolio of assets, and our objective has not changed. So the share price will move as it will, but I think we will intend to deliver. And I think the best answer to that question is I'm still putting in my money in tranche 2. So I think that's really what drives it. It's confidence from the management. The company is going to be in a better place in 12 months' time, and I firmly believe that.
Okay, just another question has come in. How many spodumene float samples have been found so far, both to the southeast and northwest of the known pegmatite trend, that could indicate further stacked pegmatite?
We've found indication of about 4 separate ones at the moment. None of them been analysed, but it's spodumene in float. So yeah, there are significant amounts of them out there, and that's what's given me most of the encouragement so far is seeing repetitions of lithium at surface. And so yeah.
So a question on Latin, Matthew. How involved is Latin in the Jaguar project? Do you share technical staff or other kind of expertise?
Limited. Mostly the support we get from Latin in country is logistical, experience in the legal aspects and operational aspects and bureaucracy side, and reporting aspects, making sure that things are done in a regulatory way, and that's very beneficial. They were instrumental in Solis picking up the Jaguar project, and have helped massively in Ball Bremer as well. So they are definitely, without Latin, there wouldn't be a Solis. So yeah, they're definitely there. They're massively supportive. But now Solis is sort of becoming its own animal. It's creating its own sort of its own way forward, and we're building a team. And you can't do it instantaneously, but it will happen over the next sort of 3 to 6 months. And but we'll always look back. I mean, you can't. There's no substitute for experience. So you've had a company that's there in the country for 10 years. You're always going to go back and ask, well, look, this has popped up. Has this ever happened? Or can you give me any insight into this? And they've got such a pool of knowledge and wealth there that we'd be stupid not to take advantage of it. And it's our major shareholder. So they're always going to be there, always present, and always a benefit.
Okay, well, last question here, Matthew. How much cash do you have in the bank?
In Australian pesos, we have just under 6 million. And so at the end of, once the financing is completed, once the tranche 2 is completed in August, it will be approximately at least up north of 10.5 million. We've had almost all the options that were out there that were still in the money and still haven't expired have been converted. So that's been a massive influx of additional capital for us. So it's put us in a very good position. We don't expect to need to come back to the market for a significant period of time, which is fantastic. And we do spend our money wisely, and it goes into the ground. So I think people can be rest assured that money's been spent in the proper way, and it's into drilling into holes and into acquisition of assets. So it's good to be in that position. It's good to be able to be free to work and make those decisions, and I think that's the best way that we can possibly add shareholder value in the short and medium term.
Okay, well, that's it for the Q&A portion of the webinar. Matthew, thank you so much for taking time to host this webinar with us today. Just Pleasure. As a reminder for our audience, our next webinar will feature Matt Watson from Precious Metals Commodity Management. So please join us tomorrow, July 18th at noon Eastern, as we discuss the critical minerals required for the clean energy transition. Thanks for tuning in with us, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you very much.